34. While you're turning there, I've told y'all this before, but I'll tell you again. I appreciate, when you guys get something out of the message, but I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a clue. And I'm not saying that. I mean that. I've never. So when I went to Bible college, my college advisor had me change my major from pastoral studies to counseling because he told me I would fail preaching lab. And he said, I don't want you to fail preaching lab, so just get your bachelor's degree in counseling. Nobody cares what it's in anymore anyway. So I got my bachelor's degree in counseling, and then I went to Elm Grove, and I did everything else online. And I did my master's and doctorate online, and you don't have to preach when you do it online because there's no audience. You just, I've never had one preaching class in my life, not one. Not a single one. And I don't know what I'm doing. I just let God do it.
If you had a class, you probably wouldn't be doing it this way. You wouldn't get it.
Well, the way they taught where I went to Bible college was to stand still, hands by your side, 4 points, sub-points, illustration after illustration after illustration.
But you're doing it the way God wants you.
Well, it's just me. I mean, the Lord just fills me. And so there you go. I just admitted to you I don't know what I'm doing. So you know what that makes y'all? Absolutely nuts. That's what it makes you. But I don't know. And I do things so backwards. I don't do an outline and then a PowerPoint. I sit down with a PowerPoint, and it's like painting a picture. And so I sit down and do the PowerPoint. I paint the picture. And then usually on Sunday morning, I'll write the outline out that I put on the paper because that's the way I think. So I just do it that way. I don't know whether it works or not. Y'all are still here. You haven't kicked me out, so that's how I do it. I don't know whether anything is really right or wrong. It's all how the Lord does. So.
Sometimes when you're witnessing to people, nothing near what close to how God wants to use you. But I feel sometimes when I witness to people that God gets a hold of me.
He just takes over.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But I get so high.
Mm-hmm.
That I'm just like in another world.
Yeah. It's how in the world can you be used to do this? Yeah, I get that. And then afterwards, then the devil really decides he's going to, because trust me, I'm the dumbest white man ever walked planet Earth by about 7 o'clock this evening. Yeah. So.
God has you delivered the way we understand it and get it.
Yeah. So you're telling me I'm simple-minded. Thank you. All right, enough of that. Let's get to Genesis chapter 34. I'm thankful that I have an opportunity. I'm thankful that I have the place to study and to be able to deliver, because that to me, I am horrible at a lot of things pastoral. I'm not good at that. A lot of things I'm not good at. Y'all will figure it out when I mess up, right? But a lot of things pastoral I'm not good at. And I guess I've just always run my mouth. So there you go. That's not what I've always been told, but all right. Anyway, chapter number 34. This, if you remember the end of chapter 33, Jacob he's now Israel. Remember, God changed his name from being a trickster to Israel being the prince. And so he's settling in a new land. This is a problem. Because from the time that he comes in and to the time he's settling in, there are other people that are coming in. And from the time he left to the time he comes back, other people have come in. This is the problem. The problem isn't with those who were always in the land. The problem is with those who settled in the land. And this is where Dinah, this is what happens to Dinah. Now, I want you to understand this. As you have read, and we've read in chapter 24 and chapter 29, we've read how there was a lot of freedom with the women coming and going to the well, right, and taking care of the animals and stuff. They didn't feel threatened. These outsiders have moved in. And it's the outsiders that have moved in that bring the threats. all you got to do is turn on the news and you'll see that in our land. Am I right? And so we bring outsiders in. It brings threats. That's a normal thing. It's always been that way. Remember when we were kids, most of us when we were kids, we didn't lock the doors. Y'all remember that? We used to go on vacation and make sure the door was unlocked in case the neighbors needed to borrow a cup of sugar or something, right? And nobody ever, it was just a different world we grew up in. Well, now, you wouldn't dare. Remember when we were kids, churches left their doors open so people could come in anytime and pray. The church was a sanctuary. And it was a sanctuary for people to come to at any time, day or night, to come into a church and to be able to pray. And even when I was in North Carolina, we left the door open. And then when they decided to lock it, they put the key on top of the door and told everybody where the key was. Right? And so it's just a different world. We're living in a different world today. And so imagine if you moved away when we were kids and then we came back to Waynesboro or wherever you're at. We came back now at this stage in our life. We would be absolutely shocked at all the changes that have taken place, wouldn't we? And we would think as we're coming in, we would have that same freedom we had when we were kids because that's the only memories we have. And so we would allow our kids to go and do and run. But you can't really do that now, can you? This is what happens here in this chapter. So let me begin reading in verse 1. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and defiled her. And his soul clave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the damsel and spake kindly unto the damsel. And Shechem spake unto his father Hamor, saying, Get me this damsel to wife. And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah his daughter. Now his sons were with his cattle in the field. And Jacob held his peace until they were come. And Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him. And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it. And the men were grieved, and they were very wroth, because he had wrought folly in Israel in lying with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done. And Hamor communed with them, saying, The soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. I pray you give her him to wife. And make ye marriages with us, and give your daughters unto us, and take our daughters unto you. And ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade ye therein, and get you possessions therein. Let me stop right there. So there's a lot wrong. A lot wrong. So in verse number 1, obviously, as we talked about just a few minutes ago, we've read about in the past how there was so much freedom for the women in the land, the region, to be out and about and working and laboring. And now all of a sudden there's a change. Jacob comes back in with his family. And Leah had a daughter. And we know that there are other sons and daughters. There's probably going to, he has a big family here. But Leah has a daughter named Dinah. And Dinah, her name means judgment, or he who judges is what her name means. And so there is a judgment coming upon the land. There's a judgment coming upon the people. There's a judgment that's going to come to the offender. And if you've read this, you know what the judgment is, don't you? And it's brutal, but I believe it's probably a good thing to do. And Dinah, the daughter of Leah, which she bare unto Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. So she's innocently out and about. She's just trying to make friends. That's the context of that in the Hebrew. She is just out there looking around, seeing who's out there, talking to people, trying to make friends. Verse 2, and when Shechem, now here's Shechem, this is the problem. And so Shechem is a prince, all right? He's the son of Hamor the Hivite. And so the Hivites, Hamor the Hivite is a Hurrian group, and they migrated sometime between Jacob's leaving and Jacob's returning. So they're Hivites. And they came into the land, and they've obviously become prominent in that section of land, in that down south of the Dead Sea. They are now the prominent ruling family. Now Jacob, it's Jacob's land, isn't it? Let's try this again. It's Jacob's land, right? Who gave that to Jacob? The Lord thy God. So God gave it to Jacob. Does God have to tell Hamor that he gave it to Jacob? No. He'll find out eventually that it belongs to Jacob. Now, when God gave that to Jacob, and God has blessed Jacob and said through the lineage of Jacob, through his sons, not the daughter, but through his sons would come the seed blessing, which is Jesus, and the land, all that land he could see, all the land where his foot stepped, all that land belonged to him and to his family, and part of that land was inhabited at this time by the Hivites. They weren't there when Jacob left. We know that by studying the early part of Genesis. But they're here now, and they're in a prominent place. Let me tell you a spiritual aspect of this, and I got this from J. Vernon McGee. One of the spiritual aspects of this is when you leave your land and then you want to come back to it, somebody's always going to take over where you left off. And so a spiritual aspect of that is just like this. When we walk away from God, we can come back to the Lord, but it's never exactly the same. It's always better if you never leave the Lord to begin with. Because there are inroads that the devil makes. There's things that come into your life that's hard to get extracted out. And it causes you problems all down the road. Would you agree with that? So a case in point, as one commentator I read wrote, he said a case in point is a man who gets saved and he has his family in church. Then job opportunities come available. He leaves his home city and he leaves out from under his parents who were very godly and they were concerned about the grandchildren and they were in church and under the sound of the gospel. He leaves, goes to the city, the big city. He's working his job, but not taking his family to church. There's no family there saying you need to be in church and so forth. Then the job goes south. He comes home thinking he's just going to plug right back in, and he plugs back into church, but his kids want nothing to do with it. And so that's kind of a spiritual aspect. And we know people like that, and we may be people like that, right? And so it does happen that way. So it's always better to just stay with the Lord. The Lord will never give you a job that's going to take you out of church. The Lord will never give you a house that's going to take you out of the church. The Lord is never going to give you anything that takes you away from serving Him. Do you all understand that? I had a good friend here for many years, he and his wife. And we were good. We worked together in different ministries and things. And then he decided he was getting another house. And where their house was, there's no church to go to. And I said, man, I don't think the Lord's doing this, blessing you, because you're not going to go to church. Well, for about a week or two, they drove the hour to come to church. And then every now and then they'd come, but they didn't go anywhere else. Now they're gone, totally gone from church. And so, it happens, doesn't it? Everybody's still with me, right? Okay, now let's get back to this account. So verse number 2, Dinah, I keep forgetting her name, Dinah is raped by Shechem, who's the son of Hamor the Hivite. So notice this is peculiar. So Shechem, the prince of the country, or Hamor, the prince of the country, Shechem, his son, he saw her and took her and lay with her and defiled her. Put that in Hebrew, he raped her. He forced her. This is a forced sexual encounter. Now this boy does not know anything of the God of the Jews. He knows nothing of the God of the Bible. And you can tell because he thinks he did this because he loved her. Now watch this. And by the way, a man does not do that if he loves you. And his soul clave unto Dinah. Now notice that. His soul clave unto Dinah. He desired to have her. Not as I love you and I want to marry you because I love you, but I want you to be my possession. And so that's the context of this. That's the way the language reads anyway, is that when he clave to her, he desired to have her as a possession. And the clave unto Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and loved the damsel, and spake kindly unto the damsel. There again, this is a deluded love. He thought that he loved her, but the idea of cleaving unto her, clave to her, has more the idea of possessing her. And so he was infatuated with her. Now, I want you to understand something. This young man is warped in his thinking. Am I right? This is warped. And so he forces himself upon her, then he wants to possess her, and he thinks that that is love. Do you realize a lot of the world thinks that that's love? That's not love. Love is sacrificial. Love is not self-serving. Love is others serving. And Shechem spake unto his father Hamor, saying, Get me this damsel to wife. So he goes to his father. I doubt that he hid what he did. I doubt that he could hide what he did. And in that culture, and even today in some Arabic, not all, but in some Arabic culture, they take what they want. And then if they decide that that's what they want to keep, then they'll marry her. But women they don't have any say. Women are like cattle. And understand that. People say that the Bible is harsh and that the Bible, the Apostle Paul is harsh on women. No, friend. Christianity gives women freedom and gives women a voice and gives women value. Islam takes the value, the voice, and the freedom of women away. That's why last week we were talking about all the stuff with Islam and what's going on worldwide. Understand that Sharia law takes away everything from the woman. No education, no say, no value. Her purpose is just to bring more men into the world. That's it. That's her purpose as a slave. And that's sad, isn't it? And so here, this boy is this way. This is their culture. Now think about that. Their culture came from the outside in and set up their culture. And now he is a prince of the region, the land. He's a ruler of the land, which means that their mindset, their value system, all that is taking a foothold there. And folks, that would never have happened had Jacob not left, right? But we all understand God works as God works. Now, they're going to be driven out of this land eventually, but watch what happens, all of them, but watch what happens to this family. So Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. So what's not written here in the custom is we can only speculate to some point. But it appears that at this particular juncture of time, and you'll see as I read the next few verses, that Shechem has gone to his father Hamor. Hamor has heard now from Shechem, I want Dinah to be my wife. I want her. She's mine. And there again, there's possessive language here. It's not really love. And so he speaks kindly to her and towards her. I want her. I just want her. And so he goes to his father and he tells his dad, basically, work out a deal. Buy her, is what he's saying. Understand that in that Arabic culture, women are for sale. And so if you want the daughter, you just pay the father what the cost is to get her. You get that? In the Jewish culture, the father paid the man to take the daughter. Not because the girls weren't of value, but because it was a thing of honor. Everybody with me? So dowries are paid both ways in some fashions in the Jewish culture, but in the Arabic culture, it's possession. I'm buying her like I'm buying a cow. It's terrible, is it not? All right, let's keep going. There's no way I can do justice to this the way it's written. It's just harsh. But anyway, verse number 6. Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out unto Jacob to commune with him. So here's the first thing culturally. They would meet in a particular place. And so they're going to talk about this matter. All right? And the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it. So notice, this is like, I'm talking no time. When we read this, it's hard to grasp, but it's like yesterday Shechem raped Dinah, and today he wants dad to go buy her. It's fast. So they're talking, the boys heard about it, they're in the field. Obviously somebody went and told the boys. You got 12 sons out there that are not happy, or 11 at this time, that are not happy. Everybody with me? And so they come in. So the sons of Jacob came out of the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved, and they were very wroth. That word wroth, we think about wrath in the New Testament. That's kind of akin to wrath in the Old Testament. They were red hot, fierce, angry. They were beside themselves with anger. You ever been so mad you're just beside yourself with it? All right. Because he had wrought folly in Israel in line with Jacob's daughter. They were angry at what he had done. Why? They knew this was their land, not that guy's land. And this is Jacob's land, and it happened there to Dinah. And if they're going to disrespect Dinah, what does that also mean? They would disrespect them and their wives and their daughters. It's got to be dealt with, and it's got to be dealt with now. Here's a spiritual aspect number 2. When you have something in your life that you need to deal with, you need to deal with it now. And it may not make a lot of rational sense how you deal with it. Think about, if you've read ahead, you know what I'm talking about. Doesn't make a lot of rational sense the way they dealt with it, but they dealt with it immediately. They connived to get it done, but they got it done. They dealt with it immediately. And the same way as it is with you and I. When sin comes into our life, we don't want it to get a foothold. We don't want it to destroy our future. We don't want it to impact our children or grandchildren. You've got to deal with it now. You've got to do what you've got to do to get it out of your life now. You don't play with sin. And you don't play with sinful people. You need to be careful who you allow into your life. We don't talk about this much in church, folks, but the old adage, you lay around with dogs, you're going to get up with fleas. It's a true statement. You lay around with sinful people, you're going to get up with sinful behavior. You've got to be careful who you associate with. Who you associate with in business, who you associate with in your everyday world, and who you allow your family to associate with. How many young girls have been defiled because dad brings somebody into the home? Or mom brings somebody into the home? Come on. And it happens, it's done, and you have a lifetime that you have to deal with it. Am I right or am I wrong? And so you've got to be careful. As a Christian, it is right for you to be overprotective of your children. Let me try that one more time. It is more than right for you to be overprotective of your children, especially if you have daughters. Please overprotect them. Everybody else at church may look at you and go, what's their problem? They're sticking in the mud. They're overprotective. They're going to ruin their kids. No, they very well may be protecting their kids. And they should be applauded. Amen? Let's keep going. And so he says they had wrought folly in Israel in line with Jacob's daughter, which thing ought not to be done, obviously. And Hamor communed with them. Man, you talk about some guts. Here's Hamor. He's talking to Jacob. Here comes the sons. So now he's outnumbered 12-1. Benjamin hadn't been born yet. And so here we are, 12 with Jacob to 12-1. And he's like, what's the big deal? She's just a girl. I just want to buy her. Name your price. If it's a defilement, then add a little to the price. We'll pay you for whatever it costs. You don't buy holiness. You don't buy righteousness. You don't buy forgiveness. You get that? You can't pay for it. They're going to pay for it another way, but you can't pay for it out of your pocket. And so what a bizarre thing. So Hamor communed with them, and this is what he said. The soul of my son Shechem longeth for your daughter. He raped her. Now he thinks he loves her. All he wants is to possess her. I'm sure she was a beautiful young lady. And he wanted to possess her. I pray you give him to wife. Well, whoa. They're not supposed to be intermingling, are they? You realize this is before the law. And the law states clearly that they're not supposed to be given over to the heathen. But God has already, if you remember, when God brought Abram out of the Ur of the Chaldees and promised him a blessing, there's a lot inferred in that, isn't it? They had to keep themselves different, separate from the world. Remember when Abraham went into a foreign land and said, "This is my sister, not my wife"? Right? Didn't Isaac do the same thing? Yeah. Why did they do that? So that they wouldn't kill them and lay with the wife. Because God had promised them the seed blessing. And so this is why they did these things. All of these things play hand in hand. God is setting the precedent that there is one family, one lineage, and you need to keep it pure. And this guy, while the promise was not given to the daughter, but the sons, they defiled her, setting the precedent that they would defile these boys' wives and their daughters in the future. Because they were of a perverse nature. Verse 9, and make ye marriages with us. I'll tell you what, you can marry our daughters. If it's such a big deal, you can marry our daughters. Not supposed to happen. They're supposed to keep it in the family up to this point, right? Y'all with me, right? Remember, that's why Isaac, it was sent for a bride. Remember, Jacob went to family, to Laban, right? And so it's in the family. Keep it in the family. Now watch this very carefully. And ye make marriages with us and give your daughters to us and take our daughters to you. Nope. You know why he said that? Because if you take our daughters and we take your daughters, you're going to be like us. We're not going to be like you. You compromise with us. Folks, I want you to know this. The world is not going to change to meet you. You're going to change to meet it. Here we are in church in 2024, and our church isn't this way, but a lot of churches are. A lot of churches have changed everything. They changed the atmosphere. I think churches ought to be traditional. That's just my preference, but I think they should be traditional. I believe the red ought to be prevalent. That talks about the shed blood. I believe there ought to be crosses. I think we ought to have hymn books and Bibles. I think that because it's tradition. But this is what I want to say. When you walk into a church and the church has changed their everything to make the world feel comfortable, they have compromised. So when they bring in the world's music to sing to the people, they've compromised. You'll never go to a baseball game or an NFL game or anything else and they play Amazing Grace to appease the Christians that are in the crowd. Have you ever been to a ball game? And they're like, okay, so we have some Christians with us today. We're going to sing Amazing Grace so they feel comfortable in our world. No. It's pump up the jam. What are churches doing? Instead of staying churches, which is for the body of Christ, what we do in church ought to be to edify us, to build us, to teach us. It should not be for that lost and dying world. We're not changing one song so that a lost person coming in the building feels comfortable. I want them to feel like this is not where they belong, because they don't belong here. They ought to be as convicted and conflicted as possible. The church ought to be so different when they come in that they wonder why they don't fit. We're supposed to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. We go out there and baptize them. We go out there and we disciple them so that when they come in here, what we do in here, they now fit and they're hungry for it. Y'all get that? And so here's what old Hamor is doing. You go ahead and you take our daughters and we'll take your daughters and we'll intermingle. What he's doing is you'll soon forget about your standards. You'll soon forget about being God's people, whatever that is. And you just come on over and be a part of us. We can all get along. Do you realize the world will get along with you as long as you go along with the world? And so when the church goes along with the world, they're getting along with the world. You never hear politicians say anything bad about Joel Osteen or Rick Warren or Andy Stanley. Do you? You know why? because they have already changed what their church is to match the world. And it should never happen. God's people are supposed to be separate. Come out from among them and be ye separate, saith the Lord. Y'all remember that in the Bible, right? Be holy, be separate. And so while we're not sticks in the mud and styles change and things change, but we are to be very God-focused, not world-focused. I remember going to a church. I went to a church in Harrisonburg. I walked in the front door, and there was a big, you know those lifesaver things they throw out on ships? Man overboard, throw out a lifesaver, and it says, you're entering the rescue mission. Well, we're not a rescue mission. We're a training ground for Christians. That's what we are. Makes sense, doesn't it? And so do you see how the church has grown so weak? And when the pastor allows that to happen, the pastor's the one supposed to keep the wolves at bay. And when the pastor brings that into the church, what he's actually doing is bringing the world into the church. And they'll justify it. I did it here, guys. Y'all remember. And you'll justify it. Well, look how many people we got. It can't be bad. They like it. They're coming. But the atmosphere's wrong. The message didn't meet the methods. The message didn't match the music and the atmosphere. And when we came back to going, we don't need any of that. All we need is Jesus. We lost about 120 people in one day. Y'all remember that? Y'all that's been here a while? Lost 120 people in one day. We didn't lose a dime out of the offering plate. Funny, isn't it? Pastors try to change everything to meet people, and little do they know, it ain't them young people that are going to pay for anything. It's the older folks that pay. It's the older folks that have learned to tithe and sacrifice. Young people tip, don't they? But we focus on young, and we forget the wisdom in the elder. Am I right or am I wrong? So this is exactly what this man is doing. Hey, we like your daughters. You like our daughters. We'll just intermingle. And it's not the way God would have it to be. Not for them and not for us. That's why in the New Testament it says to not be unequally yoked together. If you're lost, marry a lost person. If you're saved, you marry a saved person. Don't be unequally yoked. There's problems from the get-go. Amen. Everybody there? Now, real quick, the rest of this chapter just kind of goes boom, 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 boom. So notice what happens. Verse 10, and ye shall dwell with us, and the land shall be before you. In other words, I will allow you to be on this land. It's Jacob's land, Jack. And this man does not comprehend that because he does not comprehend God. Dwell and trade you therein and get you possessions therein. Come on to my land. Let's intermarry and we'll make money. We'll enter into partnerships. We'll go into business together. We'll intermarry together. Soon we'll just be one big happy family. Isn't that the cry of the church? Unity at all cost. There are some hills on which to die, brother. And unity needs to be biblical unity. Not just unity for unity's sake. And Shechem said unto her father and unto her brethren, let me find grace in your eyes, and what ye shall say unto me, I will give. In other words, just tell me what I need to have her, and I'll give it. That's what he's saying. He's not saying, I'm sorry I did wrong. I need grace and forgiveness and mercy. He's saying, just name your price, Jack. I'll pay it. He puts her as an expensive possession, but a possession nonetheless. Ask me never so much dowry and gift, and I will give according as ye shall say unto me, but give me the damsel to wife. Give her to me. As if she would want him. Do you understand the perverseness of this? This poor girl was subjected to being raped, and now this guy thinks that her brothers are just going to sell her to him so the act can be reciprocated over and over. How horrible. He doesn't care about her love at all, or her emotion or feeling. And that ain't love, that's lust. Right? And the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor his father deceitfully. And I like this. I've read commentaries that said, oh, that should never happen. They shouldn't treat people that way. I like it. I like it a lot. And answered Hamor his father deceitfully and said, because he had defiled Dinah their sister. And they said unto them, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one that is uncircumcised, for that were a reproach unto us. So the foreskins had to be cut off. But in this will we consent unto you, if you will be as we be, that every male of you be circumcised. This is a commitment now. But Hamor and Shechem said, you name your price and we'll give it. This is a spoiled boy and a daddy that ain't got guts to say no. You get it? They're about to volunteer to be circumcised all at one time. And they're not smart enough to understand why. I think I'd have been smart enough. How about you? Then will we give our daughters unto you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. Just get circumcised. You don't need to pay us nothing. Just all y'all happen all at one time. And we'll know that you're one of us now. But if ye will not hearken unto us to be circumcised, then we will take our daughter and we will be gone. They ain't leaving. That's God give them that land. They ain't going nowhere. But they lied. But I still like it. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. They were so deluded by lust and so deluded by getting this boy what he wanted. You and I need to learn a lesson here. We should not do anything and everything to get our children what they want. What they want is not always what's best. We need to do what they need and help them with what they need and help them to learn how to get what they want on their own. Right? And the young man deferred not to do the thing because he had delight in Jacob's daughter, and he was more honorable than all the house of his father. He raped Dinah and was still more honorable than all the rest of them. That's saying a lot. No, Dad couldn't, but look what it says. The young man deferred not to do the thing. No, I don't think I ought to do that. Because he had delight in Jacob's daughter. I shouldn't do that because I did that. He was more honorable. The other men are like, yeah, we get your women. Yeah, we'll do it. Not only that, but you're going to intermingle with us and we're going to own your cattle. And don't you think that means we get you in and then we get you dead? Come on. There's a lot here. Keep reading. So notice this. And Hamor and Shechem his son came unto the gate of their city and communed with the men of their city, saying, these men are peaceable with us. Therefore let them dwell in the land and trade therein, for the land, behold, it is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us for wives, and let us give them our daughters. Can you imagine Hamor and Shechem trying to convince all the men to do this? All the men. Only herein will the men consent unto us for to dwell with us, to be our people, if every male among us be circumcised as they're circumcised. Oh, it's just a little thing. That ain't no little thing, Jack. Shall not their cattle, look now here, look. Shall not their cattle and their substance and every beast of theirs be ours? Here it is. Here's how they sell it to them. Just do this. You'll be sore for a couple days. You'll get over it. And all their stuff's going to be ours. Come on, you're men. Be men. Act like a man. Suck it up, buttercup. And look at what you're going to get. Just cost you a little bit. Look at what you're going to get. By the way, isn't that like sin? It's only going to cost you a little bit, but look at what you're going to get. Yeah, we don't really see all that we're going to get, do we? Notice this, shall not their cattle and their substance be every beast of theirs be ours? Only let us consent unto them, and they will dwell with us. And unto Hamor and to Shechem his son hearkened all that went out of the gate of his city, and every male was circumcised. And the context of that is one time. All that went out of the gate of his city. And it came to pass on the third day when they were sore. So the third day, when they were at their weakest and their sorest and the worst time for them, this is what happened. And I like it. When they were sore, that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brethren, took each man his sword and came upon the city boldly and slew all the males. Only took two of them. Everybody else was laid up sore. They couldn't move. And they slew Hamor and Shechem, his son, with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah out of Shechem's house. Notice that.
So when he raped her, did he not let her leave?
No. This is one of the most boggling things you will ever read in the Bible. He raped her. She comes back home. Her brethren find out. When Jacob and the brothers start this dialogue and say, you can have her, but you got to be circumcised. When they were circumcised, she had to go stay at that house. Now, nothing happened because they had just been circumcised. But can you imagine what was going through her mind? I believe them boys told her what was going to happen. And what's that? Huh? No. So on the third day, don't you think maybe she was the liaison between them? There's a lot not written here, but it boggles my mind that she had to stay there for 3 days and listen to them. And they obviously thought they had won a great victory. They're about to die. So the sons of Jacob come upon this, and notice it's Simeon and Levi. Levi's, his descendants are going to be the priests. Guess what they do for a living? They shed blood. Right? Everybody with me, right? Out of Shechem's house and went out. And the sons of Jacob came upon the slain and spoiled their city because they had defiled their sister. So they took all their stuff. I like it. You win, you win. And all their wealth and all their little ones and their wives took they captive and spoiled even all that was in the house. So guess what happened? Just the opposite happened. They took their wives and they took their little ones. Now this is the ancient world, and it makes sense in the ancient world. And Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, ye have troubled me to make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land. No, they didn't. There would be fear that comes upon people. Jacob should have went in there with a sword his own self. There's a lot here that I don't understand. How about you? Do you realize that if you read 50 commentaries, you could come up with 50 different ideas? We got to come to the conclusion. There's a lot that we don't understand. It's outside of our culture. It's outside of our mindset. It's outside of our way of thinking. Because first of all, if somebody raped someone, then we call the law. There was no law to be called. We allow the law to due process, because if we go and do this, we're going to go to jail for murder. It might be a justified homicide, but we're going to jail for murder. So we allow the law to handle things. There was no law to have handled. They had to deal with their own law, and they had to set the precedent. You don't mess with our family. And that's exactly what they did. They did that. I don't see this as a bad thing. I see this as the only thing they could have possibly done at the time. And I think Jacob is too worried about what other people think.
I'm surprised they waited so long to do it.
Who is it that made her go to that house? It wasn't Simeon and Levi. It wasn't Leah, her mama. It's Jacob, her daddy. And I don't think Jacob knew what the boys were going to do. There's more than we can comprehend. When we get to heaven, we can have a long talk with this guy and go, what happened? Right? So he said, you'll make me to stink among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and the Perizzites. Who cares? They're supposed to drive them out anyway. And I, being few in number, they shall gather themselves together against me. Who cares? God made the majority. God's already promised you protection. God has already promised. Remember what God said? Nobody will defeat you. Didn't He say that in the last chapter or two? Nobody's going to. I place you there. I protect you there.
So did Jacob not believe him or not trust him?
So time goes by and we forget. We all get stupid, don't we? So he says, and they'll slay me and I shall be destroyed, I and my house. And they said, should he deal with our sister as with a harlot? Should we, is it right? Hey, they asked the right question, didn't they? Should we? They're only going to be sore so long. Should we allow them to deal with our sister as a harlot? As one who's bought and paid for? No. They had more honor than their father had. And Jacob was at this time no longer Jacob, but Israel. But there is a reason he's called Jacob in this chapter and not Israel. You and I have a new name, and God ain't going to give it to us till we're glorified. And I believe there's a reason for that. Y'all with me? How many of y'all forget from time to time who you are? I do. Act a fool, right? Make bad decisions. Yep. How many of you would agree that the church has forgotten who they're supposed to be in America today? Yeah. And when the church forgets who she's supposed to be in America today, and the compromises are made with the world, what has happened? We now have worldly Christians. So much so that you and I are viewed as bizarre and weird and out of touch, aren't we? We're them old fogies, them fundamentalists. We're a dirty word. I firmly believe this with all my heart, folks. And I'm done. We're going to pray and go home. I firmly believe in these last days, persecution is going to arise against the church. But when the persecution arises against the church, it's not going to come first and foremost by the world. That will come. It's going to happen among people who call themselves Christians. They already have marginalized us. They already have set our thoughts, our way of believing as the fringe of Christianity. We are now the far right. We're just traditional Christian people. The way we believe is the way that our forefathers believed. But now suddenly we're way over here. And so I believe that persecution is going to come first and foremost from people that call themselves Christians. And the world, which they're in bed with, will follow suit. Yeah. That's just my thought. Even so, come Lord Jesus, right? All right. Okay, that's that chapter. It only took us 2 weeks to get there, but we got her done, right? All right. No questions today, Dinky? All right, that'll go. Okay. And Patsy's not here to sidetrack me either, is she? All right, Patsy, where are you at? All right, let's pray and we'll go home. Thank you guys for being in Sunday school this morning, and I appreciate you coming each and every Sunday. I do. I appreciate it. Father God, thank you so much for allowing us to have this time in our Sunday school class, and I pray, Father, that you'd watch over us as we go our separate ways today. And Father, just bring us back together tonight and to study your word and see what you have to say about things, Lord. And I thank you so much for just forgiving us and cleansing us, walking with us. And so many times that we fail you and fall short, you extend mercy and grace to us. We're so thankful for that. Go with us now, Lord, and keep us safe today till we can meet again. In Jesus' name, Amen. Y'all have a great day. I'll see you tonight. Lord